Sir Isaac Newton's third law of motion states that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And you know what? I concur. For every legendary playoff moment, there's some poor sap who had to surrender the hit. You probably recognize some of the most legendary moments in baseball history, but how often have you ever thought about these guys? Probably not that often. So that's what I'm here to do today, looking back at what happened to some of the guys who were on the other end of history. The year is 2011. The Rangers are on the verge of history, leading by 2 heading into the bottom of the 9th inning. If they get 3 outs, they will win their first title in franchise history. To get those 3 outs, they send out Neftali Feliz. In 2010, Feliz was both an All-Star and AL Rookie of the Year winner, and he kept up pace in 2011. He has experience in these kinds of moments, clinching the ALCS in both 2010 and 2011. To lead off the inning, he gets Ryan Thoreau swinging. At this moment, the Rangers have a 98% chance to win it all. Pujols doubles, Berkman walks, then Alan Craig strikes out to bring the Rangers within a single out of nirvana. 2.5 minutes later, and the Rangers are 1 strike away. 39 years of team history have led up to this moment. Cruz misses the ball. Just like that, instead of the most iconic image in Rangers history, Feliz is saddled with a blown save. He didn't want to talk with the media after the game, he was just stunned. In the 10th, the Rangers again had 2 outs and 2 strikes to put the game away and again blew their shot. They lost in the 11th, and then they lost Game 7 the next day. Feliz was apparently very shaken up after the blown save. Manager Ron Washington said, quote, "He was, in my opinion, not in a very good emotional state. The Rangers would surely not want to further shake their closer's confidence, right?" Well, they didn't actually. They gave their closer a 2-year, $14.5 million contract. Problem is, they gave that deal to Joe Nathan. Instead of demoting Neftali Feliz to the setup role, the Rangers moved him to the rotation? What? I get that CJ Wilson and his 223 innings left in free agency, but how is the decision to put your all-star closer into that role? As dumb an idea as it sounds, it's not like it came out of nowhere. The Rangers were floating the idea around as early as just after his debut in 2010. So how did it go? Well, he actually did very good. But there is a catch. His debut came against the 2012 Seattle Mariners, who were coming off of the 2nd and 5th fewest runs scored of any team since 2000. But regardless, Feliz still got off to a great start in the season, holding a 3.02 ERA through his first 7 starts, including his first career complete game, albeit an 8-inning one against the eventual AL champion Tigers. Was he really putting it all together? Not really. Feliz's BABIP against was extraordinarily low at .217, which is going to finish the season as the 2nd lowest BABIP among starters. And his FIP was well above 4. His StatCast numbers didn't exist yet because that's still 3 years away. You're probably wondering, is this where the bottom falls out? Is this where his luck starts to regress? No, actually. Feliz just got hurt. The Rangers had an all-star closer, and they killed him. Even articles at the time knew this was going to happen. And it didn't help matters that Joe Nathan started off 2012 with a kinda crummy April. His Tommy John sidelined him until September 2013, where he came back at the tail end of his season for a handful of low-leverage appearances. He missed a massive chunk of games to start 2014, first appearing on July 4th, and after Joaquim Soria was traded, Feliz returned to the closer role and performed well. But he started 2015 with an ERA over 5 before being DFA'd and outrighted off waivers. Feliz got picked up by the Tigers, where he continued to struggle for the rest of 2015. In 2016, he reunited with David Freese on the Pirates and was fine. In 2017, he was signed by the Brewers and released. He was picked up by the Royals and was released. He wound up not pitching in the majors again until 2021, where he logged 1 inning for the Phillies and 3 for the Dodgers, before spending the rest of his career south of the border in Mexico. So what's the verdict here? What happened to Feliz's career? Was it David Freese's fault? Not really. I mean, the Rangers really messed up his development. Imagine if next year the Brewers told Devin Williams he was going to be a starter now. It would probably ruin his career. So no, the triple probably did not ruin his career. The Rangers did. Speaking of... Paul Sewald was having an unreal postseason. 6 saves and a win helped the Diamondbacks sneak their way past the Brewers, Frogers, and Phillies on the path to their 2nd pennant in team history. In Game 1, we already went over that one. Trailing 3-1 in the series and 1-0 in the 9th, Sewald was called upon to at least give the D-backs a chance. He allowed 4 runs. At first, it didn't appear to have gotten to him. It was still time for Paul Sewald to pitch. He started 2024 on the IL thanks to a strained oblique, but when he returned, he was great. His .54 ERA was the 4th best ERA among relievers in May and June. And then he blew 3 consecutive saves to open July and finished with the 2nd worst month for a reliever. He was demoted out of the closer's spot to start August and finished out the rest of the year with an ERA somewhere in between his ooh and his ah. Was his sudden downswing because of Seager's big boom boom? Yeah, sure, man, I guess. And now it's time for the lightning round. Jose Alvarado gave up a bomb that took so long to land that he didn't become washed until 2024. Luis Garcia gives up a nuke to Jorge Soler in 2021 and immediately saw his ERA balloon ever since. He got Tommy John and will return in 2025. Nick Anderson, I mean that season's not real, but he got Tommy John and fell off anyways. Will Harris only pitched 24 more innings after the infamous doink and retired due to thoracic outlet syndrome. Are you noticing a theme here? Brandon Morrow. Dave Roberts is an idiot. Morrow pitched 30 more innings for the Cubs and retired. Brian Shaw. Brian, you've just lost the biggest game in maybe the history of sports. Congratulations, you get to pitch for the 2024 White Sox. May God have mercy on your soul. And that just about wraps up our lightning round. Be sure to tune in next time for when I down as many Dr. Peppers as physically possible and explain in unprecedented detail how Jamie Moyer is actually worthy of a spot in the Hall of Fame. Jeurys Familia was lights out in the 2015 postseason. 9.2 shutout innings with a quintet of saves, including the one that sent the Mets to their first World Series in 15 years. Ah yes, the Mets in the World Series. Surely nothing could get weird here. Well, in Game 1, he entered the 8th with the tying run on 3rd and the go-ahead run on 1st. He coaxed a ground out that got him out of the jam. He sits down and watches the top of the 9th, then comes back out and retires Salvador Perez. He gets to 1-1 on Alex Gordon and then gives up a dead center home run that blows Familia's first save since July. That stinks, but he rebounds by getting out of the inning. The Mets would eventually lose Game 1 and Game 2, and for some reason they sent out Familia with a 6-run lead in Game 3. He sat down all 3 batters he faced to get the Mets on the board in the series. In the 8th of Game 4, a pair of 1-out walks set up Familia with another chance. He gets Eric Hosmer to an 0-1 count and then...
Chopper on the infield, can't turn two! Murphy boots it!
Ooh, a weak ground ball bestows Kansas City the lead. Then a single gives them an insurance run. The Mets, of course, lost Game 4. Yes, the Matt Harvey game. Your 4th favorite YouTuber's favorite pitching performance ever. He was dominant for 8, and it was unclear if Familia would come out for the 9th or if Harvey could talk Terry Collins into letting him go back out. Harvey came back out, and then allowed a walk, stolen base, and double to put the tying run on 2nd with nobody out. In comes Familia. He induces a simple ground out that moves Hosmer to 3rd. Tying run 90 feet away, 1 out. Familia does exactly what he's trying to do, sawing off Perez's bat. It's a chopper to Flores, but David Wright cuts him off. He looks back at Hosmer, and then he chooses to go for the out at first. Hosmer bolts for home. Lucas Duda throws home to get him, and... none of this is Familia's fault. He did exactly what he was trying to do. His final series line, 5 innings pitched, 1 earned run allowed, and 3 blown saves. And a CWPA of negative 22.75. This wasn't his fault. None of this was his fault. Except Game 1. In the attempt to bounce back, Familia had another excellent season in 2016, even making his first All-Star game. The Mets scratched and clawed their way to a wildcard game appearance where Familia came on to keep the 9th scoreless to give the Mets a chance to walk it off. And this is where he really fell apart. Brandon Crawford led off with a double, Familia responded with the strikeout, and Joe Panik worked a tough full-count walk. And then it happens. Connor Gillespie, a batter with a career OPS under 700, whacks a go-ahead, game-winning 3-run home run. This is where Familia's career really starts to go downhill. In 2017, he wasn't so hot, missing time with both injury and suspension. He got back on track with a strong 2018, even after being traded, but then he went back to the Mets in 2019 and was downright awful. 2020 was a fake season in which he performed well, but blew his only save situation. In 2021, he blew 6 of the 7 save opportunities given to him, managing an ERA just a hair over average. In 2022, he finally bottomed out and his career fizzled out. So, did Connor Gillespie end his career? It looks like it. Familia's stats fall off a cliff after 2016, and man, I feel bad for him. He should have a ring. He did his job. This one's gonna be quick, but I did think it was worth mentioning. It's Game 6 of the 2002 World Series. The Giants are up 3-2 in the series and have gotten out to a 5-0 lead. Russ Ortiz has been masterful through 6, but a pair of one-out singles gets him pulled from the game. Baker slips him the game ball. After an 8-pitch battle, Felix Rodriguez surrenders a wall-scraping home run to Scott Spiezio. And just like that, this game is close again. But this segment isn't about Rodriguez, because he gets pulled and Tim Worrell allows a home run and a pair of base runners. But this segment isn't about Worrell either. So who is it about? Well, that would be the man with the 11th most saves in baseball history to this point, Rob Nen. Nen is pitching with a major shoulder injury, and yet despite that, he's given his all to the Giants, saving all 7 of his opportunities in this postseason so far. He's doing this knowing full well this might mean the end of his career, which is why this becomes all the more heartbreaking.
Into left center field. Bonds on the run, won't get it. And the Anaheim Angels have come all the way back.
This would be the final appearance of Nen's career. He never returned from the multiple surgeries he got on his torn rotator cuff. Nen gave it his all to get the Giants a title, and yet they came up just a handful of outs short. If that doesn't break your heart, I don't know what will. Okay, hear me out. I am not going to explain Mariano Rivera's dominance to you, but I will point out that after the biggest 9th inning Game 7 meltdown in MLB history, the Hall of Famer and unanimous greatest closer of all time had his 2nd worst season as a full-time closer. Look man, I got nervous to put one way or another. Some of you may point out that Byung-Hyun Kim's performance in 2001 is a good example of the whole thesis of this video, but despite Kim having one of the worst World Series performances ever by a player on a winning team, his 2002 was actually very good. His 2003 was good as well. He wouldn't really fall off the planet until 2004. The Boston Red Sox hadn't won a World Series since World War I was raging. It was Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. They were up 3-2. Calvin Schiraldi came out of the bullpen for the 8th inning. In 1986, he's had a breakout season out of the Red Sox bullpen. He immediately loads up the bases, but manages to get out of it with only 1 run allowed. He pitches a clean bottom of the 9th to send this game to extras. Dave Henderson hits a go-ahead home run in the top of the 10th to make it 4-3 Red Sox, mirroring a similar go-ahead home run he hit in Game 5 of the ALCS. By the way, if you want to know how seriously dark blowing a playoff game can get, you can look into what happened to this man, cause it's not pretty. Anyways, the Red Sox get an insurance run, making it 5-3 Boston. Schiraldi heads back out onto the mound looking for 3 of the most cathartic outs this sport will ever see. He gets the first one with an easy can of corn to left. He gets the second with another easy fly ball. 68 years of pain are on the edge of being broken, but it won't come at the hands of Gary Carter, who singles into left. Pinch hitter Gary Mitchell keeps the trend going with his own single into center. Schiraldi gets ahead in the count 0-2. This could be the moment, but it isn't. Knight singles and scores a run. The tying run is now on third base. That is it for Calvin. Bob Stanley enters the game. Mookie Wilson is about to enter the battle to end all battles. He fouls off the first offering and then takes the second pitch outside. The third pitch is upstairs for ball 2. Wilson fouls off the fourth pitch to earn strike 2. He fouls off another one to keep things going, and then he does it again. This could be the moment all the Red Sox long suffering ends. Nope, not even close. The game is now tied. Mookie fouls another one back. He slices one, you guessed it, foul. Winning run on second, tie game, 3-2 count, 2 outs. Is Stanley gonna get out of this?
Little roller up along first, behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight and the Mets win it.
The Mets have forced a Game 7. But that's not actually where this story ends. Because in that Game 7, Schiraldi came into the 7th with the game tied at 3. He immediately allowed a home run to Ray Knight, who, spoiler alert, is going to win Series MVP. Then it gets worse as Schiraldi allows a single and then tosses a wild pitch that moves Dykstra over to second. Rafael Santana hits a little roller up along first. Behind the bag, it gets past Buckner. Here comes Dykstra and the Mets take a 2-run lead. You're probably thinking this is the last batter Calvin Schiraldi faces, right? But this is 1986, so they leave him in to pitch to Roger McDowell, who bunts and moves the runner over 90 feet. That does it for Schiraldi's 1986 season, quite possibly the most devastating back-to-back performance in MLB history. Also, one more of those runners scored, because I guess we're just kicking the man when he's down. Schiraldi had one of the greatest seasons ever for a 24-year-old relief pitcher. Almost all of his peers kept that momentum up into having a strong career. You know these names. How would Schiraldi fare after such a devastating postseason? Oof. There were no injuries. He shifted roles and it didn't work. He changed teams 3 times. He was just broken. Out of everyone we've covered so far, Schiraldi is the clearest case of a pitcher losing his mojo after a bad World Series. I'm not even sure if there's a better example. Wait, why are there still 5 minutes left? I'm under the assumption that all of you have seen Major League and as such are familiar with Ricky Vaughn. You know, the stereotypical hard-throwing closer with command issues. We've all seen one before. A wild thing, if you will. Mitch Williams didn't inspire Vaughn, but he pitched certainly wild enough to earn the nickname. In 1989, he was traded for a future Hall of Famer and broke out with the Cubs, making his first All-Star team. After a down 1990, he was traded to the Phillies, where he once again turned into one of the better closers in the NL in 1991. Once again, he followed up a great year with the stinker. And then one final time, he bounced back, posting a good 1993. For the first time since 1983, the Phillies were going to the postseason after winning the NL East. Williams didn't get off to a great start. He blew a pair of saves in the NLCS, but Philadelphia won both games anyway. In Game 6, he delivered a 1-2-3 ninth that sent Philadelphia to the Fall Classic. Against Toronto in Game 2, he picked up a 5-out save. He was called upon again in Game 4. The Phillies were up 14-10. It was the 8th inning. There were runners on 2nd and 3rd. Williams was going for a 5-out save. He gave up a single immediately, but that's fine. He still has a trio of runs to serve as a cushion. And then a full count walk loads the bases. Williams gets a called 3rd strike, and now just 1 out away from exiting the jam, he must face Ricky Henderson. Mitch does not get that out. Ricky singles into center and drives in 2. It's now 14-13 with the tying run on 2nd. Go ahead run on 1st, and towel on Curt Schilling's head. Williams gets Devon White into a 1-2 count. And then he delivers a pitch that White slices into the gap. It gets past Lenny Dykstra and both runners score. Unbelievably, the score is now 15-14 Blue Jays. That score would hold and Williams would be saddled with the loss. This blown save was so devastating that Philly fans, in all their Philadelphia-ness, decided to send their closer death threats the night of Game 4. Whether it was an attempted motivational tactic, just some drunk guys, or some truly despicable people, we'll never know. What we do know is that Mitch didn't get any sleep that night. Williams' teammates came to his defense. And man, it sucks that you and I both know this is gonna get so much worse. Game 6. 1-run lead, 9th inning. Williams is on to pitch. Ricky Henderson, who is just one of 7 batters in the integration era to have 10,000 plate appearances and an OBP above 400, leads off. Williams walks him on 4 pitches. So now the man with the most stolen bases in baseball history is on first base. This is very concerning for Williams, who, on the advice of his pitching coach, uses a slide step delivery once Ricky gets on. Devon White flies out on a full count. On a 1-1 count, Paul Molitor lines a single into center. Tying run on 2nd, World Series winning run on 1st. Joe Carter in the batter's box. Williams loses him for 2 balls. Then he earns a pair of strikes. And then Mitch Williams earns a place in baseball history.
Well hit down the left field line. Way back in.
It's impossible to understate just how badly Williams blew this series. He blew it so badly that come December of '93, the Phillies traded him to the Astros just to get him out of town. Mitch took it in stride, saying he was happy about playing in Texas near his ranch. When he returned to Philadelphia, he was greeted with a mildly standing ovation. He was, well, characteristically wild, walking Jim Eisenreich on 5 pitches, and then beating Mickey Morandini on a 1-1 count. And then on a 2-2 count, Kim Batiste roped a deep fly ball to left, but Luis Gonzalez was able to track it down. He got pulled after that. In his first season after the Carter home run, Williams was terrible. It got so bad that 4 days after that return to Philadelphia, the Astros released him, just straight up cut him. Mind you, they traded Mitch for Doug Jones, and he was an all-star closer in 1994. Williams' 53 ERA plus was 4th worst in the majors in 1994. He signed with the Angels for 1995 and promptly, well, he pitched in 20 games and failed to record an out in 7 of them. If he hadn't been as bad as he was, it's quite possible that the Angels would have clinched a postseason berth over the Mariners. He was technically better than he was in 1994, but he was still cut in mid-June. He signed a minor league deal returning to Philadelphia in 1996 and couldn't even manage to do well enough in AAA to warrant time in the big leagues. In 1997 with the Toledo Mud Hens, he pitched well enough in AAA to make it back to the majors. And then Mitch Williams was released after he couldn't keep his ERA under 10. He never pitched again. Once again, much like Schiraldi, he didn't get hurt, he changed teams 4 times, he was just awful. This is, at least in my mind, the biggest and best example of a pitcher who is permanently shell-shocked after a World Series blunder.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't really understand, but I fell down this hill and I got glue on my hands and I got rackets on my fingers. Rackets on my fingers, I got rackets on my fingers and I just can't stop. Don't stop. I can't stop, I got a platypus control.